everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Pooja Gohill and welcome to a new series of Spill the Tea with Pooja.
Because what happens is where they're trying to help this person out so much, they forget about themselves and lose themselves, and then they get into this rut. And it's, there's a whole load of people out there who need support. They may not realise it because they're probably watching this trying to help someone else. But they're probably thinking, I've been helping someone else, but not realise the effects that it's actually had on you. So you have to reach out. You're not a burden. If you are struggling to help somebody, you go and reach out for support. You go and book out, for instance, go and get a counsellor. Go and book yourself, put yourself in for a counsellor. Say to this person, I'm going to go. I would enjoy it if you could come with me. Actually, I feel like I'd want you there because I've been suffering. I know you've been going through it a bit. Why don't we go together? It will be fun, all right? We can. It won't be fun necessarily, but it will be. It'll be more reassuring knowing that you're there with me. So then you're actually doing two birds, one stone, helping each other out. Little things like that,
This is a safe environment to talk about real issues with real people. So I really do hope that you enjoy Spill the Tea series. It's with a really amazing person who I've met through YouTube. His name is Shae Green and he's got a YouTube channel called WBW Productions. So Shae Green, thank you so much for joining me today. I have honestly been so interested in men's mental health, and I was so glad when you said that you would come on and join me for my first Spill the Tea series.
Thank you ever so much for having me on. I'm honoured to be one of you, well, your first guest on this series, and I just imagine it's going to go very far. So good luck on the journey. I'm sure you're going to do great. So my name's Shae Green. I come from WBW Productions. And on my channel, we do a whole host of different things, a whole host of subjects.
Yeah, you're such an amazing interviewer, and I really do love all your recent interviews that you've done, and also your challenges just make me laugh so much. I love your channel, and yeah, I'm so honoured to have you today with me. So what are you drinking? Obviously, this is Spill the Tea. I've got a coffee, which is not is not in sync, but what are you
Funny
drinking?
enough, I have a coffee as well.
It's the coffee in the morning that's my go-to. I think like in the afternoon I can have a tea, but yeah, coffee gets me going.
You see, I don't drink tea whatsoever. I don't like tea. Ever since I was young, I drank tea once and it made me feel ill, and ever since then I just have stayed away from tea. But first thing in the morning, I must admit, I've started to drink lime, ginger and honey with some hot water.
Wow,
Works
that's
absolute wonders.
yeah.
And I have a coffee about an hour later.
I definitely need to try that.
Man wants to speak about his feelings, it's always kind of a laugh, a joke. Oh, don't be such a perfume. I mean, get on with it. Oh, stop being a wimp, stop being a little girl, just go for it. Do you know what I mean? And men don't feel like they can trust someone enough. Now is a time in all realms of what we're going through to change.
When I say mental health and men, what comes to mind? What do you say?
Difficulty. In all honesty, it's a difficulty in so many different ways because there is such a stigma still around it, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty that we kind of get into around the stigma of it. So I feel like it's always a difficult conversation, especially because you're talking about people's lives and the way in which they go forward. It's hard to kind of quantify really the effects that mental health has in men in particular, because I feel like men are very good at covering it up. And they don't talk about their feelings. They're always kind of there to prop up everyone else in some ways because that's their role that's been assigned to them.
That's very interesting that you say that, and I think that's why I was so eager to have this as my first topic, on Spill the Tea, just because it should be spoken about. How have you been coping in particular? I know obviously we were in lockdown, we're now out of it finally, and how have you been coping? What's your experience been?
I think compared to a lot of people, I have been extremely lucky. I've been working throughout the pandemic, a key worker working insurance, so I've been very lucky in that sense that a lot of my routine was still in place because I still had to work the same hours. What I did find difficult was separating work from home life. And that affected me in ways I didn't even realize. And it's only since you kind of sent me some of these questions beforehand, and I was kind of prepping and thinking about it, and I was thinking, actually, when I think about this, I can't leave work at work, I can't leave home at home. And the office is such an escape. It's, I imagine, like parents, for instance, they go to work and it's probably like a nice break from, having the children around them all the time and constantly having to clean and do other things like that. So yeah, you take away something that you need, because humans need interactions. It affects your mental health. And for me particularly, I found that the lack of interaction with other people, without even realizing it, put me in a downward spiral. And part of my issue was because I had too much time on my hands. That's something else you don't realize. I feel like when you go to the office and that journey between office to home, it splits up your day. You get home, you're excited to be home because you get to see everyone, with your family and what have you, and you don't get that same excitement anymore. It's just move the laptop off my lap and turn the TV on. And I had a deep lack of motivation as well. There was no one around me. Obviously, I had my fiance with me, but there was no one where I was in kind of a healthy, direct competition with. When you're at work, you can have, your little competitions. Who's going to get, colleague of the week, or who's going to get the most outbound calls, or the lowest, what have you. But when you're at home, you lose that as well, and you kind of feel a bit lost. And it's no one's fault, because you're having to try and do everything virtually. And that's what happened to me. I've become a bit lost throughout the pandemic. I realised I'm not sure if the path which I'm currently on is the path that I should be on. There was a lot of unknown questions, and that's what I found difficult. So I started to bring those questions forward, and I started YouTube. Healthy way for me to be able to do that. I've got different types of interactions. I was able to focus on something. I have a goal. I have direct competition. Again, healthy direct competition. There's people out there who you want to keep an eye on. What subscriber account are they on? Oh, okay, they've gone up. How do I get better than that? How do I, kind of use those tactics? I think that answered your question. Sorry, that was a very long.
No, I loved it. I love how honest you are. And I love, it's just really lovely to hear from a man's point of view as well. And you're right, in a way, like I did a lot of reflecting. And it's so interesting when you say that lockdown really made you think about your way of life and how things were, working for you, and you changed a few things. And then you also looked into new ventures to kind of get that outlet as well. It's so interesting to hear this, because I personally, I feel that men don't talk as much as women. Like, we all sort of have those same issues, I think, but sometimes it's not very open with men. You don't really hear about it that much. So it's really interesting, from your point of view, where you're saying that you had to actually reflect on things that were working for you and you changed things. Before lockdown, do you think that men had any mental health issues? Do you think it's something that was around before, but maybe lockdowns made people become more aware of it?
I think it's always been there. That's something that I strongly believe, and I feel like the stigma around men's mental health, it comes from history and what we know of history. I mean, you look at the war and what those men had to go through at that point, and women as well. There was a lot of strain. They saw a lot of disgusting stuff. They had to do a lot of disgusting stuff. And I say disgusting because it's a trauma that these people go through, and they didn't speak about it because it's not something that you want to repeat. And I feel like that's always been there. The difference is now is that there's not as many people going to do these traumatic things as history's always had, and men have now started to assume different roles within society. I think that's the best way to put it. There's more of a balance, and because of that, I think what's happened is there's been more of a discussion around it. There's been more people wanting to discuss their mental health and to help those who are probably going through something similar. I think there's never been a way for men to actively say it without them being stigmatized from all parts. I think that there's been a lot of times when men have probably tried to call out for help, but they were brushed aside. I don't think it's just men which are changing. I think it's society needs to change, and society in terms of the powers above, schools, hospitals, celebrities, business men and women, their approach to it started to change. You have a certain type of man that you want to be, I think, probably the way to put it, in terms of you kind of see on TV, movies, music, newspapers, army, politician, very stiff, very upper lip, and that's always been the role model. And I feel like that's what's happened with society. It's just stayed the same, and now is a time in all realms of what we're going through to change. Like social media, what it's done is it's just highlighted it. The same with what's happening with a lot of this race stuff as well. It's just highlighted what's already there.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that society, has this stigma. It's been obviously embedded in all of us from when we were little. Obviously, growing up, you see all your role models, and there's all these macho men that you're looking up to. So what do you think is something that society could do in terms of breaking down that stigma, so that if you were experiencing mental health, for instance, that you would feel like you could be a bit more open?
You have to create trust. Men don't feel like they can trust someone enough. I feel like I didn't particularly have anyone who I could trust in that sense. There's some things you don't want to bring to your family, so you want to seek outside help from your friends, which is perfectly fine. That's what your friends are there for, and I know your family are there for that, but sometimes your family might be part of that problem. So you have to reach out to someone else, but you can't always do that. There's never a trust. And I feel like it's just about letting people know we're here to listen. Don't be afraid that I'm going to judge you. Don't be afraid that I'm going to judge you for what you're going to say. Because if a woman come up to me and said this to me, I would think the exact same thing. You can trust me, you can speak to me, we can get this sorted out. Mental health can be brought on by a whole range of things. It could be debt, and you could be trying to avoid that debt, and you're scared to pick up the phone and speak to the company, so you get someone else to do it for you. It's just about creating trust and letting men know that it is safe to talk about it. No one is going to diminish you for that. Even if they do, then don't stop there. Easier said than done, because once you break trust, then it takes, you can't necessarily rebuild it back.
I think you've just hit the nail in the head there. Do you think is one of the things that somebody could say or not say to somebody who's experiencing mental health?
First thing is to genuinely ask the question, are you okay? There's a difference between saying, how you doing? How you doing? There is a distinct difference in my inclination there, what it is I mean, because when you first see somebody and you say, hi, how you doing? That's just how you doing, you're right. But make your next question the exact same question, but in a different way. How are you doing? Like, what's going on? Let's talk about it. And I learned that from these group of boys who unfortunately lost a friend during the pandemic. It was on a documentary. I can't remember the name of the documentary, unfortunately. The presenter lost a friend to mental health, a close friend, a friend he knew all his life. And he was going around getting different stories from different people.
It's the BBC iPlayer documentary.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it is. Ronan Kemp. That's it. Ronan Kemp is his name. And they went and saw these group of boys who lost a friend to mental health, didn't see it coming, and it destroyed them. It destroyed them, and it made them realize, and I think it made them realize in a way in which it's starting to make all of us realize throughout this, is you have to ask, how are you doing? Because you as a person are not going to want to just impose yourself upon somebody. And I feel like that's part of the issue for men. They feel like they're going to become a burden for this person that they're going to speak to. That's not the case. The case is actually, no, this person is here to help you. And if they don't want to help you, what I've realized is that, well, this person shouldn't be in your life, right? No matter how big or small the problem may seem to you, never try to diminish or minimalize what that person's going through. What is 10 on the scale for you is potentially 1 on the scale for someone else. I think the best way to describe it is first world problems. And it's a very extreme example, but it's the exact same thing on a personal scale. A very long-winded answer again, apologies.
No, it's great. It's great advice and it's a great perspective. And it's so true, you know, everyone has their own issues, and sometimes, you know, it's all about listening rather than comparing. I've been taught as well that when somebody comes to you, you know, to share something, there's never a agenda set, is there? There's never like a meeting to say somebody's going to call you to talk about, you know, that they're being bullied. But if a topic is raised, the best thing that I've learned is just to be an ear, because the fact that they're opening up, you want them to keep being opened up. So you don't want to close them down, you know, by deflecting with your opinions and your experience, because the fact that they're just maybe opening up, they could just be opening up to you for the first time. You could be the first person that they've opened up to. So sometimes it's so important to sit back, and if someone's actually, you know, being open and they find you approachable, then I think the best thing to do is just to be an ear and just to be there, because sometimes even that can, you know, make so much of a difference to someone's life. And the fact that they've been able to like take that weight away from by telling you, you know, it could be that that's going to help them, you know, so much as well. So such great advice and such great perspective as always. What do you think that we could do to collectively change, you know, what's happening currently?
Speak and listen. I think it's as simple as that. I always tend to find that society, for some reason, we like to just overcomplicate things. We like to put in a whole load of money and intervention and things like that. That needs to happen to a degree, don't get me wrong, because you need charity. But as a society, as a majority, we just need to speak and listen. We need to have, it starts for me in school, 100%. I feel like that being a male growing up within school, you're told things like, don't worry about it, man up, stop acting like a little girl, it'll be fine, get on with it. A girl goes in with an issue and it's kind of like that it's taken a bit more seriously to a degree, right? And I know schools probably don't do that now. You know, it's been almost 10 years since I've been at school, so it's changed dramatically, but it definitely starts at school. It's about making sure that, you know, you're getting the right type of support. Personally, I think every single school across the UK, well, across the world, where possible, to have a counsellor on site, the same as you have a medical nurse. Have a counsellor on site for these children, because so much drama happens in their lives without anyone realising, right? Because this person said this about them, you know, they ain't got hair like this girl over here, or you know, this boy is a bit too macho for them and they're throwing away about. That's serious drama for them, you know, that Snapchat, that really offended me, this, that, the other. So they need that, just someone to vent to, someone who they feel like they can trust. Mental health is such a big range and it starts off so small. So what I mean by that is, if we are teaching our children to learn to speak from a young age, it will help them just to speak so that they may hopefully never develop it, or develop it on a much smaller scale, because they're already equipped with the right tools. What we need to do for the men now is, again, teach them, but use the mediums in a better way, put more representation out there about it. And it's already starting to happen. You've seen a lot more adverts talking about mental health, men's mental health, but I think EastEnders, if anyone's watched a recent storyline with Mick in that, you know, and his mental health and how that developed for him at such a late stage. Things like that, where they showed him calling up the Samaritans and, you know, making that call, which helped save his life. And I'm very grateful as well as a man on the other end of the phone as well, because it's just showing that trust, showing that it's okay to speak. Men need men as much as women need women. And I feel like that's what people also forget. So yeah, as a society, we just need to have more representation. It's on social media, allow men to put it on social media without having to put ridiculous comments on there. And don't stigmatize men in the same way in which it upsets women to call them fat and to you know, mention comments on their hair. It affects men the exact same way.
Yeah, definitely. Men have feelings. I think everyone forgets. What's your take on self-care?
So self-care is something that I've only recently, admittedly, kind of been more aware. Don't get me wrong, I've been hygienic all my life. You know, I go in and I have showers, and you know, I make sure that I'm all clean and proper when I need to be. Lockdown, you may have seen me with a big bushy wiry beard, and that was, you know, because I let myself go a bit. But yeah, I feel like I've never gone and got a manicure or a pedicure. Never had it. Because I always thought, why the hell would I want to go and do it? That's a woman's thing. That women go and get their nails done, right? That men don't go and put on acrylic nails. They don't go to the nail salon and get all that stuff done. But I've then noticed men doing that. So now I'm aware of that, and I'm kind of tempted to go and get it done now, just to see what that experience is like. So
You love it.
I'm sure I would, because you know what? I love massages. That's the thing. I love every once in a while going to get a nice massage. What society show you with men? Men don't do that. How many movies have you seen where a straight macho male would go and get their, you know, their nails done, or go and have a face pamper, or go and get in a mud bath and things like that?
Yeah, no, definitely not. And all these actors, I'm sure that they're doing it behind the scenes, you know, to get
Absolutely.
themselves prepped. But yeah, you don't see it in the movies. You don't also see it in any men's magazines or like female magazines or things like that. Definitely. I think, you know, lockdown as well has brought everything like this to the forefront, and things that, you know, when life gets in the way, sometimes we don't talk about issues when we need to. And now that we've had that time to reflect, like you were saying earlier, I feel like, you know, some people are bringing it to the forefront, and it's a good thing because it's just raising more awareness and normalizing it in a way. Because, you know, the more you hear about stuff, the more you see it on TV and things like that, it does normalize the experience, and it makes you feel a little bit more open about that issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree. You touched upon this earlier where you were mentioning that, you know, just by talking to someone who has come to you that has a mental health issue can really just help in terms of, you know, the way that they're feeling and making it better. You know, how much do you think talking about feelings ties in with mental health? Is it just the talking, or is it the actual getting help?
I think that it's different for every single person. Some people may need a mixture of both. Some people may not need to talk, but just need the action. Some people may need the action, but they may need, you know, may not need the action, sorry, but they just need the talk. And the reason being is because I'm a person where I don't say what's on my mind, or I try not to say what's on my mind with immediate, you kind of spur of the moment, because although when you say things spur of the moment, it doesn't always go your way. And I also don't mean what I say, and everyone says that, you know, when you say something spur of the moment, whether it be good or bad, you kind of walk away going, why did I say that to that person? Now I've got to go out for a drink. I didn't actually want to go out for a drink. Or, you know, great, now I've got to go and do this event that I didn't want to do. I always like to, yeah, I'll sit on it. Yeah, it sounds good. You know, we'll pencil it in, and I'll get back to you, because I want to think about it. Is it the direction I want to go in? Long term, is this what I want to do? Right. So there's different scales.
I had to bribe you here, basically.
Thanks for the £1,000,000. I'm joking. But there's also a lot where I feel like in emotion, I personally like to just sit down and understand what I'm feeling. I want to know actually what is the root cause. Is there a point of me trying to tackle this problem over here, when actually that's not the main cause. The main cause is this issue over here. So I always like to think about it, always like to know exactly what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that. It might take me a few days, it might take me a few weeks, who knows. But what I don't do is I don't just think, if that makes it. It's hard to explain because I'm thinking without just thinking, because I'm also trying to find a solution to my problems. I'm not just going, this is going wrong in my life, this is going wrong in my life, this is going wrong in my life. I have this dialogue. Sometimes I think I'm going crazy, but I've realized I like this level of craziness, so we're going to work with it. But
We're just going to roll with it.
We're just going to go with it. It's doing me okay. But I just have this internal dialogue with myself and have this conversation with myself to understand what I'm thinking. And then what I do is, once I'm ready, or once I feel like this conversation isn't getting anywhere, I will turn around and I'll speak to my fiance, or I would write it down, or I will find a way just to visualize what's going on around me. And then I take the action of fixing it. So I'll give you a few examples. YouTube. For a long time, it just wasn't going the way in which I wanted it to go. The quality of it, even now, it's still not where I want it to go, where I want it to be, but I know that it's improving slowly but surely. But I'm sitting back going, what's wrong? What is wrong with my videos that no one else is doing? Well, my videos aren't adding value. So how am I going to add value? Okay, I'll start doing who is videos. I'll get to know people, because that's going to add value for me. If it's going to add value for me, it's going to add value for everyone else. And these are the type of conversations I have. I ask these questions to myself. That's on one level. The next level is when it comes to your mental health, you have to be honest. You can lie to yourself on YouTube to some degree and say, yes, I'm the greatest that there ever is. I've got the best ideas, and you can work with it. And it turns out it actually probably could be a great idea. But with mental health, you can't lie to yourself. With mental health, you've got to be completely honest, and you've got to ask yourself the question, why? Why am I feeling like this? Is it because work is stressing me out? If work's stressing me out, then I need to have the conversation over here about how I fix it. And then what I need to do is then go to my partner and be like, look, I'm sorry for the way in which I've been hard to love for the past couple of days. I know, because I've been snapping at you. I've been pushing you to your limits. You're probably going through something now. You're thinking that something's going on. So I apologize for that. Here's what my problem is. Here's how I think I'm going to fix it. What do you think? I think the important thing is to find your own routine. That's just my routine. I do the thinking, I talk to myself, I kind of then start to figure out what the positives are, where can I change things, how can I adapt it in any aspect. I then reach out and I take action by speaking to somebody, I take action by actually going and, getting the problem solved. So you've got to find your own way of doing it. What we need to do as a society as well is not force someone down a particular track, because it may not work. If they don't want to go to a counsellor necessarily, don't allow them to go to a counsellor, because it won't work. They will reject it, and the issue still just continues. So you talk to them for a while. Should we do some exercise together? Is it this that we need to do together? The whole range of things.
So do you know what? That's so interesting that you've got your own sort of like reflection mechanism. And I think it's so important, isn't it, to be so honest with yourself. And it's so brutal though, because sometimes when you're going through something, you might want to deflect, like you were saying, on YouTube, on all these social media sites, you are just putting out the best version of you. And when it comes to the end of the day and it's just you that you've got to answer to, it's so, it's so interesting that you have that system in place. But I can see that, it's such a good system that you've got, because it's definitely just being so brutal with yourself and finding out, inside, like what exactly is affecting you, and you're hitting it now like head on, where you're just like, right, if it's this, you're gonna try and do this, and you're using certain options and things like that, which I think is such a great like mechanism to have. It's so inspiring that you've got something like that as well, because I personally don't, sometimes I forget to reflect myself, and it's one of those things that about, you hear about, you see that people are you know, really benefiting from something, but sometimes you just forget to do it yourself. And it's so interesting and inspiring that you're saying that, because it's making me feel like I need to do this too, because
I think it's important. I think it's important. I think it's so important for everyone to do, but look, it's not going to work for everyone. It's not going to work for everyone because the truth hurts. And maybe you think you're being truthful to yourself, and maybe it's not you who needs to ask the question why. You need someone else to ask you the question why. How does that make you feel? Why is that an issue? Why is this doing this? Why is this doing that? There's such a big range of things that you can do personally, not just you, I mean Pooja, but I mean, you know, as to the viewers, to change that. There's a Chinese proverb that it might be Japanese actually, but there's 3 masks that everyone wears. You've got the mask which you wear in front of your friends, you know, that happy-go-lucky, nothing affects me in this world, I'm going to be this person, or, you know, whatever type of person you are in front of your friends. You've then got the one which you are in front of your family and, you know, people like your partners, your husbands, or your wives and your children, because there is a different side to you there. But there's one side that only one person in this world ever sees, and that is you. You have the mask of when you are by yourself, and that is probably the truest reflection of who you are in whatever it is you're doing. But it's hard to be in that place all the time because we've always been accustomed, especially in the most recent years, you know, when we're looking at teenagers, and these are the people I really feel for right now, are teenagers, because they're in a whole realm where people are only now being able to give them real life advice. Because for a lot of older people, you know, I'm talking 30s and 40s, you didn't have things like Twitter or Facebook or all this. It kind of started, you know, with, I would say, my generation almost. You know, we were kind of part of that first sort of wave of it. Of course, you had MySpace just before that, but it started getting really big, I think, with Facebook, and we were that first wave. Snapchat came out when I was in school. So, you know, there's now a chance for me to be able to turn around to these young generations and say, look, I know this hurts you, and I know that this is this or this is that, but this is how I dealt with it, and you can trust what I say because I went through that. And that's probably part of the issue. But what I mean by this, Pooja, is it's hard to be honest to yourself. And I've beat around the bush with it, I know, sorry, but you've got to be completely honest.
so inspiring, honestly. Yeah, it's just so inspiring. I feel like I'm speechless.
It's just, you know, I feel like in my life I've been touched by mental health in different aspects, different ways I've never even realized until most recently throughout lockdown, and realizing again, using that reflection time, thinking, oh, that was a real situation. That was something I didn't realize. That's part of the issue. We didn't have time to reflect before lockdown. Lockdown was a time for reflection because a lot of people were furloughed. And this is probably where some mental health did stem from, because they didn't realize what they've been through or what they're going through. And now they've had a thought of reflection and nothing to occupy themselves. So now then this is, you know, where the mental health starts going off. And I've learned that through a whole range of experiences that I've gone through. And that's why I say it's not about changing your thought patterns. You can't necessarily change your thought patterns. What you do is you change your perspective on a thought. The thought is a thought. The thought is, I am unhappy. The thought is, I don't know if I should be here. Started. When it comes to mental health, you can't just have one conversation and think that that person's going to be okay because you've intercepted that thought and you've changed it around. What you need to do is help someone change their perspective on that thought.
It's all in the mind. Your mind can play tricks on you. Obviously, it could be true, but you have to kind of take a hold of yourself, like you're saying. And I agree that, you know, sometimes you have to take yourself out of that situation and really do look into it in detail, because you might think that people are laughing or talking about you in a scenario, but they actually might not be, or they might be talking about you, but in a positive way. You know, sometimes you have to look at the bigger picture. You can't just look black and white. You know, you have to look at all the other aspects of it. So, you know, it's so interesting that you say that.
It's so much easier said than done, though. It's so much, and I don't want anyone to watch this and feel like that's all I've got to do, or this is the magical answer. It's not. It's not a magical answer. There is no magical answer to any of it. It is not easy. What I've learned through experience is that it could take you years to be able to do that. You have to take baby steps. If you walk into a room, we'll use this example again, someone's laughing at you, it makes you feel really uncomfortable. Just try and stand there for 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds. And if you can't do it, walk back out. Go back home. Go do what you need to do. Next time you go back in, try it for 2 seconds again, and wait until you get to 2 seconds. Like, hold on and wait until you get to 2 seconds, then go. And then the next time, once you got to 2 seconds, go to 5 seconds. Little things like that, and build yourself up. It's not easy. It's not easy, and I implore you to grab hold of anyone you've got around you and ask them. You're not going to be a burden. You might be a burden, and if you're somebody who is supporting somebody, because look, there's as much as you've got people who suffer from mental health, there's also another potentially silent pandemic of people who are trying to support and they can't do it. So, you know, you've got to reach out to people, and if you are struggling, there is nothing wrong with that. The wrong part is when you don't take the action to help yourself and you let it spiral out of control, because that's when things get dangerous.
Definitely. You know, mental health is such a complex issue, such a complex area. You know, you might think that you're supporting somebody by listening, but, you know, don't forget about yourself. Everyone has their own, like you were saying, chimp. So we all have to nurture our chimp. We all have to, you know, look after ourselves. Self-love starts with us. It starts within. You know, we, as much as we would like to be there for someone else, of course, never get lost along the way. You've got some amazing advice. You know, please do remember to click the subscribe button and the notification bell for both of our channels. You know, we're more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have, but I will be linking any helplines down below as well. So please do reach out if you're experiencing, you know, any of these issues. Please don't feel like you're a burden.
Definitely.
Because you're not.
Definitely.
So I'm going to read out some statements that, you know, I found, and I just want to get your opinion, your reaction. I want to see what you say.
Okay.
Men don't cry. Men are not girls.
That makes me furious. Is the only word. Like, look, men cry. Men cry without letting you know that they cry. That, you know, they'll be in the shower crying, so when they come out, I've done that before. I'll be in the shower crying, so when I come out, you can't see that I've been crying. And if anyone asks me, well, why is your eyes wet? Oh, it must be I've got soap in my eyes or something, right? Men cry. Don't ever, if you are a dad, a role model for someone in somebody's life, never turn around and say to somebody, don't cry. Crying has scientifically been proven to help with your mental health, because it releases certain chemicals within your body. It literally helps you. Everyone always says, I feel better now I've had a cry, because you're letting it out in a form, right? If somebody is crying, take it seriously. And I get it's difficult potentially as a parent growing up, because, you know, there might be times where you have to turn around to your child and say, right, stop the cry now, you're being a bit silly, right? Because there are potentially situations like that. But if somebody's coming to you seriously upset about a situation, take it seriously. Give them the advice and the support that you can in that moment. Be that shoulder to cry. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, that infuriates me, that statement.
Yeah, it's just one of those sayings that's always instilled in us. You know how you were saying that you grow up with certain things, especially in England, that saying is something that, I don't know, it's always stuck with me, and I don't even know where it came from, but yeah,
well, it's this idea, I think, of a macho man, isn't it? A macho, like, you don't cry, like he'll take on the world. You see it on TV, like, you know, this, for instance, The Rock, the amount of films that guy's been on, and I can only kind of think of a few where he might have cried in it. I would expect people like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to cry, and I see some of the stuff he goes through in these films, right? You know, he's jumping out of planes, and I'll be crying in these situations, right? And this is it. So let it out. Yeah.
Or even in the Fast and Furious, where he lost his friend, I don't even think he cried then. So
They kind of just put their heads down. That's how men deal with it. They'll be all right. Don't worry. But it's going to make them tougher, and you know, they just become a lot more grumpier from the situation. That's what's shown. It's ridiculous.
I think that saying should be banned. I don't think, you know, anyone should say that to anyone.
There's a difference, but don't ever turn around maliciously or in a way to tell someone to shut up by saying, "Don't cry, stop being a little girl."
Yeah, and it's good to cry, you know, releasing all of that weight. You know, sometimes having a little cry is actually all you need. And I'm not saying, you know, it solves mental health issues at all, but just having that little cry can sometimes just make you just, I don't know, let it out and just feel better afterwards. I mean, I know
Yeah.
I do. And yeah, I think it's good for men and women to cry. Sometimes, you know, we can all have emotional days. You should always give yourself that time to like just process and let yourself, if you feel upset, let yourself feel upset. You know, don't try and talk yourself into having a happy day. Sometimes you just are in that hormonal state and you just need to kind of let it go, and it's a process, you know, and just hope that in a couple of hours you'll be fine. Or, you know, I always find that a good cry will solve like it just makes you feel a little bit better. And what about when, or if you've ever had somebody say, man up?
That one for me, I said that the last statement makes me furious. That one for me, I literally, as you said it, my heart dropped. I hate with a passion, with an absolute passion, man up. What is manning up? What do you mean by that? Go out there and go get in a fight? Just suck it up and hold it all in and destroy your head mentally? That's what it means for me. It means don't let it out. Don't tell people that what you're feeling. Go hit the gym and do, you know, 1,000 push-ups and come out looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That it's ridiculous. Ridiculous isn't even the word. If anything should be banned, if throughout all of this equality that we're all doing, it should be that word or that phrase, man up. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that people actually, you know, that kids hear that from their parents, man up. Like, no, you're a child. Be upset. You're a human. Feel your feelings. Let it out. Because what happens with men, and this is why I feel like a lot of teenagers, especially, are so angry, is because that's the only way they can let stuff out. And you know, it's good. People do it all the time. They go to, you know, scrap yards and things like that, and they'll smash up old cars and things. I've seen, you know, plenty of YouTube videos because you're physically letting something out. So when they go down to the park and that, they're angry without even realizing they're angry, and they're just smashing everything up. No wonder why. No wonder why.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's so unnecessary, that saying, and it's so damaging. You don't even realize it. 2 words, you just wouldn't think that by saying man up is just so damaging on somebody. And it really does have the shut down effect. It has that effect that, no, your feelings don't count. You know, you shouldn't have these feelings. By you saying that women, you know, have this maternal instinct, it's giving you another sort of outlay. You know, if you ever felt like maybe you couldn't speak to a guy, and, you know, the first instinct for me would be speaking to somebody similar. So a woman to woman is a bit more comfortable. But if you feel like you can't speak to a guy, you know, there's always so many people out there. And the fact that you're saying, you know, like women are more maternal, maybe they're more willing to listen, it's a great thing, because you just need somebody, don't you? It doesn't matter if they're man, women, child, whoever it is, you just need somebody there who's, you know, going to listen to you.
To listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I think for me personally as well, just touching on that a little bit, you know, women have always, I've always trusted women a lot easier, and I feel like that's probably the same with a lot of men. Who knows? It could be from our mums, our sisters, you know, and that trust that you have with women. So if it is that, don't feel like you're looking like a wimp in front of a woman. I'm sure a woman would probably actually find a man much more attractive, if anything else, if they knew that you were in touch with your emotions and not your feminine side. You know, although each man does have a feminine side, in touch with your emotions.
Definitely. And I feel like because women feel and can speak about those emotions more, I feel like they show that empathy just because for women it's so easy to speak about these kind of things. So I feel like sometimes you might get a different approach from speaking to a woman as well, because they'll have a different sort of like point of view. And yeah, I just think that it's just nice that you can kind of confide in the other like sex in a way, because you just wouldn't
It's a
sometimes.
different perspective. It's a different
Yeah,
perspective, different way of thinking.
you know, there have been celebrities out there that are a little bit more open with speaking about their mental health. We've got like Prince Harry, Prince William. You know, how do you feel about the fact that they've spoken up, and do you feel like the tide is turning?
It's great that these celebrities are coming out. It is turning the tide. It's helping to get organisations, especially the brothers, because I feel like obviously they're royal. They're going to be able to get the government backing to help with different, you know, different situations. So it definitely helps and it turns that tide. What we need now more of is for people to be. It's so difficult because it's a very difficult subject. It's a very difficult thing to talk about your own life and your own emotions and putting your private stuff out there. But we need more people to step out and to share with us their stories. You don't have to give us every detail, but to share a story. If you know a YouTuber, for instance, I'm thinking Brandino, he's gonna kind of, if he steps out about his mental health, he's going to attract to a whole different type of audience to what Prince Harry or Prince William are going to attract. If you're talking about people like Saffron Barker, she's going to step out to a whole load of different people. Yes, the tide is turning. It's definitely helping with people such as, you know, celebrities coming out, but there needs to be more from different platforms.
Yeah, because, you know, when I look at mental health and celebrities, you know, there has been complete car crashes with female celebrities, but I don't recall, you know, there might be, maybe I've missed something really big, but I can't recall any, you know, mental health massive issues coming out about any male celebrities. You know, Spears, you know, she went through a major mental health battle in the social media, and she still is. And I feel like I don't see a lot of, you know, awareness about male celebrities at all.
Men are always kind of, in my eyes, branded to be drug users. It's the only way to really, you know, these drug users, these abusers, these this, that, these, that, the other. Whereas
It's
they're
like
not
as
looking
if,
at it from the other foot.
and it's like as if having a drug or a, you know, alcohol problem is a lot more acceptable than actually just having a mental health problem, because
Yeah.
you know, it all stems from mental health. You know, it's silenced. It's the other thing, you know, it's the alcoholism, it's the drug issues that are highlighted, not, and the violence as well, and not the actual issue itself. And you know, I think there's definitely more. I agree with you. There's definitely more to be done. I do feel that the tide is slightly turning, but there is a lot more to be done. You know, I feel like as a man, if I was in a mental health crisis at the moment, I wouldn't know, or I wouldn't be able to look up to a particular person, you know, in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that representation. It's not there the same way in which a lot of models come out, especially young black men and women, or I say black, BAME, you know, men and women who don't have that representation there on, you know, who's on TV. That in itself affects mental health, right? So it's all about, for me, the way in which the media coverages a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people who are on reality TV shows, and it's always too late. Especially, I feel like when it comes to men, it's always too late because it's not spoken about until something drastic, like when they take their own life, happens. Right? Society, what we need to do is, in my opinion, almost boycott the media the way in which it is until they stop doing tabloids. I don't see the if you want to put your life out there, you as a person should do that. I don't feel like the media, in terms of the newspapers and, you know, all these major morning show outlets should determine the narrative of your life and your story. There is only one person who is going in your grave, in your coffin at least, and that is yourself. So definitely there needs to be a change of culture. It all stemmed from me, I would say, late 90s, early 2000s, when you started getting things like The Valleys and The Hills come on TV. That's when it all started changing, and this culture which is built up is ridiculous, disgusting, and needs to change.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and you mentioned, these big, massive TV production shows, just thinking about that, like Love Island and Mike DeLise's suicide. And, I feel like there was a lot that went into, the publicity, obviously straight after he committed suicide. But these shows are still going on, and I don't really see a lot of help or advice or guidance or publicities, on helping young and vulnerable people that are entering these shows. If you're on a show like Love Island and you've never experienced what it's like to be on there, and you're getting flooded with loads of social media trolls and things like that, I think it's important for these TV production shows to actually, help those celebrities and those contestants that are on the show, as well as afterwards, because it doesn't stop, like you were saying.
It doesn't stop, and part of the issue is, though, is the production company themselves. There is I can't remember what the name of the show is on Netflix. It was a little while ago when I watched it, but it's a series. I think it's called Production, actually. It might be something like that. I'll have to let you know. But it's about a similar situation to Love Island, and they're kind of showing you behind the scenes what's happening. What happens is, and I believe this to be completely true when it comes to reality TV, is that the producers will sit there, say something into this person's ear, and then they'll get up all furious, like, I've just heard this, that, the other. But then the producers just step back and they're all sitting there arguing. And it's like they're causing it. If you're going to do a show like Love Island, Big Brother, let it be natural. These people think they're walking into a house or into a show onto an island or onto a beach, whatever it is that they're on, to just be left to their own devices and for the experiment to see what happens between them. Let that, if that's what it's going to be, let that happen, but make sure that there is support there, because should somebody feel like they're being bullied, or should they feel like actually, this person is being toxic to them, or if they are finding it more difficult, because I said, take a routine away, it's going to hurt somebody. So you've got to make sure there's that support there, but leave them to their own devices. Love Island shouldn't be on TV anymore, in my opinion. The entire thing just needs to be cut. Too many people have died. Very Caroline Flack, her beautiful soul, she, and a lot of other people that was on there that felt like they had to take their own life.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be on, because they did it with Jeremy Cole. They stopped Jeremy Cole the second somebody thought like it was a very bad idea.
Stems from everyone around your support network, whether that be your managers, your production team, anyone, your advertisers, things like that. It all counts. And I think it needs to stem from the top, like you were saying.
Yeah, definitely. I would implore anybody watching this to go on to the School of Greatness. It's a podcast hosted by a fantastic guy named Lewis Howes, and he does he's got over 1,000 episodes up on YouTube and podcasts such as Spotify and so forth. And he has all these great guests that come on, and they teach you about having difficult conversations and about being truthful and about the importance of routine and making sure you're setting yourself up for success in every realm of life. So if you are finding it difficult, find something like that as well. Have a look at him. There's probably something on there which would help somebody at least on a particular subject. But yeah, find different podcasts like that as well. Find something which benefits you.
Yeah, definitely. And, on the topic of suicide, have you had any suicidal thoughts?
Difficult one. There have been times where I thought that people would be better off without me. I don't think there's ever been a time in my life where I've taken action. There hasn't been a time where I've taken action, but I don't think there's been a time where I thought that I'm seriously going to take action like that. I know people who have had the thoughts of doing that, and also know people who have had the actions of doing that and started those actions. Also know that there's relatives around me who have also had people in their lives who has done that. The thing with suicide is everyone tends to say that people who take their own lives are cowards, and that's almost a way for them to try and scare them into not doing it, and to try and convince them is by saying you're cowards, or that person was a coward, they were selfish. And I get why people would think that. Listen, anyone who takes their own life is not selfish, they're not a coward at all. There's one thing in life that none of us want to do, and that's to die. And for somebody to do that, I think it may send out the wrong message, and apologies if it does, but for somebody to do that, it actually makes them, I would say, very brave. It's nobody is selfish for doing it, because you know what, I guarantee you that any person who has taken their own life or has been an attempt to take their own life, I guarantee they do it because they think that the world would be better off. They're actually doing the complete opposite and thinking of everybody. If somebody ever approaches you and says, I'm going to take my life, I've never begged before in my life, but I'm going to beg you today. For the first time in my life, I'm going to beg, do not take that for granted. Don't think that you can just brush it off. Get up and go and see that person. Don't just pick up the phone. I know we're in lockdown and it's difficult right now, but to some degree, there's another pandemic. It's a fact to say that suicide rates overtook COVID deaths. So if somebody is seriously thinking about wanting to kill themselves, please just go and help them. Even if it's to call an ambulance, you know, to call these charities and these organizations to get advice on how to help. We've got to change the world's thoughts on this, and, you know, it's difficult to talk. It is difficult to talk about because you never know what's the right thing to say. But this is what I mean. This is where we've got to be brutally honest, and we've just got to say it how it is. So I am going to speak candidly in the terms of the people who have suffered from it as well. Don't feel like you were the one to blame. That's difficult. Everyone starts to blame. If I had done this, if I had done that, if I had done this, if I had done that, you may have done something, but that may have not changed the outcome, right? It probably wouldn't, because it takes a lot for somebody to do that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that, you know, you've had those thoughts and you've gone through that, because it's a horrible experience, and you know, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And like you said, it's a complex area, isn't it? It's not one person's fault. And like you said, you know, if something like that ever came up, it's so important to just go and be there, you know, because just by doing that, you could actually just help someone a lot in those times.
Here's the thing. Here's one question I think it's important to ask somebody who is suffering. What happens if you stop? One thing for sure, and it's you don't stay where you are. Eventually, nothing in this life is permanent. From the moment you're conceived, nothing is permanent. You're never going to stay in your mum's womb forever. You're never going to stay a child forever. You're never going to be in school forever. You're never going to be a teenager forever. You're never going to have your first kiss forever. You're never going to lose your virginity forever. You're never going to have the same friends forever. You're never going to have the same relationships forever. There's so many things which are not going to stay forever, including the situation you're in now, no matter how permanent it feels.
Yeah, just very well said. And, you know, like you said, if you feel like you're in a situation where you can't get out of and you don't have anyone to speak to, just reach out. There's quite a lot of like helplines you can go to. Just reach out and there'll be someone there at the end of that line, you know, who can really just help you, you know, listen to you. And don't ever feel like you're alone, or that you're going to solve everything by you taking your own life, because you know that sometimes is not the best. It's not the option that's going to solve everything. And you might feel like, you know, when you're at that point, that that's the only option you have, but there's so many people out there, so many supportive people out there that can actually just help you, you know, and just make you feel like that's not your only option, that there's other options out there. So don't ever feel like, you know, you can't speak to anybody. As I mentioned, you can always drop me or Shae Green an email. You know, you can always reach out to us, or you can always reach out to the helplines in the description. I'm going to read out a few statements and they're true or false. So all you have to do is say true or false, but I'd love to hear, you know, what you're going to say, because some of the statements that I read, I was shocked at. So yeah. Okay. So the first statement is 3 times as many men as women die by suicide.
True.
True. Yeah. I was absolutely shocked by that though, because, well, you just don't hear about it. You just don't. Yeah, you just don't hear about it. And it's so sad as well, because it just, one, it should never happen. And 2, I just feel like, why is there nobody that these men can speak to, you know, before this thing happens? Not saying that speaking to somebody, you know, will stop it, but there should be more support out there, especially for men. If 3 times as many men are dying as women, it shouldn't be.
It's just always too late. That's the issue. It's always too late. And men, don't get me wrong, there's, you know, there's a part of it to be played on the person who has the health issues, because sometimes it is very, very, very difficult from anyone in the outside world to pick up on what's going on. So, you know, you have to, as much as it is about listening, the other person needs to talk as well.
Yeah, definitely. You know, they need to first want help. Sometimes if you're going through something like this, sometimes you might not even open up in the first place, or you might not have that person to open up to, or you might just feel like talking to someone is not going to solve it. You know, it's a complex area of things, but I think that when I read that statistics, I just thought that should never be a statistic. It just, I don't know, you know, it just really infuriated me. Second,
yeah, definitely.
Men aged between 40 to 49 have the highest suicide rates in the UK.
I'm going to go with false. I think it's probably younger generations.
It's true. And I know how obviously in today's, we've been, you know, in today's chat, we've been talking a lot about young people, social media, you know, TV productions, all these shows. The statistic says that men aged between 40 to 49 have the highest suicide rates in the UK. And I think this might stem from the fact that more men are homeless than women. So it could be something to do with that.
I would say that would definitely play a part. I think when you're looking at that age range as well, so for me, I feel like it does kind of stem from things such as the war, because with no doubt it's probably their grandparents, you know, if you're that age, it's probably your grandparents who were fighting in the war. So their grandparents never would have spoke about their feelings. And then their parents, you know, that similarly would have just transpired, right? It's kind of similar to what you see, and I know it's probably a bit futile to compare, but with movies and things like that, the way in which dads treat their children, and then it happens, and now we're starting to get to a point where that's kind of not as tight anymore. So I wonder if that potentially as well is why that age range in particular, because maybe they just never had that growing up, that support.
Yeah, and I guess at that age, you know, you would think as well that somebody between 40 to 49 is a family person who's probably like lived life to the fullest. Maybe they've gone through a midlife crisis. You just don't know what's happened at that stage, because that is such a mid stage in a way. It's not like that they're, they've got into their retirement. It's not that they've just come
still
out of
relatively
university.
young.
Still relatively young, yeah, in their, in their careers and in life in general. So just going on the last statement that I have, women are more likely to be victims of violent crimes, 1.5% more likely than men.
That's a difficult one, because there's been so much in the past year. I mean, we've had, the women which have come out about sexual assaults which are violent in a lot of ways. So that's difficult, because when you start comparing that to gang violence, which is predominantly males, I'm going to say that men are probably the more victims of violent crimes, based on the fact that I would say that men tend to get themselves into violent situations more likely.
So the correct answer is that men are more likely to be victims of violent crime, 1.5 more likely than women.
Yeah, I gathered that. It's such a dangerous world out there. I mean, okay, it depends on how they studied this study. There could have been 100 ways that they could have tried to quantify this and to put it in. So I think it's very broad.
So these
violent crime, gone.
So these facts that I got were actually from a mental health website, and much of the statements that I found, they were just so shocking in a way, even though like now that I read them, I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I can understand that.
I haven't done any research into it, but it wouldn't surprise me that much if men probably are suffering more with domestic abuse to some sense, because they don't speak about it, so we don't know how many totally there.
Definitely, the fact that it's silent and it's a silent statistic, and even these statistics that I'm reading out, they're only from those that are reported by the victims, and there's so many silent victims out there. There's so many people that we just don't know about. That brings us to really the end of the chat and the main point here, the fact that I really wanted to do this chat, especially with you, just because I feel like it's such a really highlighted, really important topic that we should all be speaking about. And I wanted there to be a safe environment that we could speak about it in. And I'm not an expert in any way, shape or form, but I wanted to share this issue on my platform and try and help, even if it's one person out there that I can make a difference to. Again, like I said, please do feel to, drop me or Shae Green a message if you have any questions. We have Instagram accounts, so you can always DM us. And we also have our own YouTube channel. So please do remember to click the subscribe button and the notification bell as well. And drop your comments below if you have any questions. You can always reach out to us privately as well. Appreciate that this is such a, real issue and a real topic here, that you might not want to drop a comment in the comments box below, but reach out to us. We're more than welcome to kind of speak to you. And thank you so much for watching. And Shae Green, thank you so much. I feel like you have been so real with this interview today. The things that you've said and shared, I really do appreciate it. And you're such a great friend, and I'm so glad that obviously I met you. Thank you so much for watching. Shae Green, I'm going to leave it with you for some last words.
I just want to say thank you ever so much for having me on. It's really helped me, I think, to vent a lot of frustrations, which I just kind of say to people around me when it comes to these type of issues. So thank you for allowing me to have a platform to come and speak freely on. A definitely safe environment. I feel completely safe with you talking about it. But yeah, make sure you come check us out, light it up.
Definitely. Thank you so much, guys.